Lewis, editor of Building Enclosure. Thanks for listening along with us today. The International Coal Council continued its annual participation at the United Nations Climate Change Conference this year, wrapping up COP28 just last week. The ICC presented at 10 sessions, focusing on this year's theme of rethinking, rebooting, and refocusing global climate action. Ryan Coker, ICC's Vice President of Innovation, and Judy Zakreski, Senior Vice President of Global Operations and Solutions, joined us to talk about some highlights from this year. Ryan and Judy, thanks for sitting with us.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
So to start off, how was this year's event? Can you tell us some of the major takeaways for you guys?
Yeah, so for me, it was really exciting to see sort of the buildup to a lot of focus on the building sector as part of the climate solution, both to address climate mitigation, but also climate adaptation, and sort of seeing both pieces at the table together. So as you mentioned, lots of events that we were involved in, but lots of other events happening around buildings as well, which was really exciting.
And I would just reiterate the work that we've been doing on making sure the adaptation message and the resilience message is really heard and viewed equally to the importance of mitigation. I think we're seeing the needle continue to move. There's still a lot more work that needs to be done, but it's good to see that discussion reaching equivalent status to the mitigation discussion.
Now, I kind of want to launch into all the stuff that you guys did while you were there. I know we got a lot to talk about. So the Big Five Global event, what's the main purpose of this event and what was the ICC's involvement?
Well, the Big Five Global is one of the largest construction industry shows in the world. And it just happened to coincide this year with COP. And so we have an office in Dubai that is meant to serve the whole MENA region, the Middle East and North Africa. We have a regional director of operations based there, Mohammed Amr, and he has been he's taken out a booth at the Big Five for the last couple of years. And so that was not really a change. We still had an ICC booth at at the Big Five. And the message there is really promoting the full family of solutions. And in the MENA region, we really do have quite a bit of uptake on our conformity assessment solutions, specifically the discussion and solutions related to the proper and safe use of innovative building technologies. We're getting a lot of uptake of an understanding of the work that our evaluation services does, with the evaluation systems reports being accepted in Dubai, and a real move to making the ICCES sort of ER system the norm and what is used regularly in Saudi Arabia. So we're talking to manufacturers, we're talking to AHJs, the authorities having jurisdiction that need to use these tools, and we're talking about all of our solutions at the Big Five. And so, like I said, it just coincided with COP, and we were able to leverage our presence there by basically, I staffed the booth one day on our day off from COP, and Ryan had a speaking engagement, and Amber was able to do a speaking engagement also. But Ryan, I'll let you talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, so I think it was really a great coincidence to have folks that are interested in helping move the built environment forward in town and able to participate in the Big Five. So the session that I spoke at was specifically on opportunities for offsite construction, really leveraging the sort of sustainability opportunities, some of the workforce challenges that I think around the world folks are dealing with within the construction industry. And things that the Dubai municipality, Saudi Arabia, and others are really exploring. And then my colleague Amber was on a panel really talking about sort of the future of the construction industry, integration of technology, things like building information modeling, and sort of how code standards and some of the conformity assessment tools can really help advance that. So yeah, so I think it was a really, really great opportunity.
Now, one thing that ICC presented was innovations for carbon reduction. What were some of your key points during that presentation?
Yeah, so that was during COP, and we actually had a couple sort of opportunities to bring that message to the forefront. It's really about not maybe specific technologies, but as we look for ways to reduce the carbon impacts of buildings, really the role of standards in assuring that we're actually getting what we're asking for, that those carbon solutions are actually delivering the greenhouse gas emission reduction savings, but that they're also not sacrificing quality, safety, resilience, sort of all of those measures that we actually really care about. And so we really focused on a couple mechanisms to be able to do that. One of them is around product evaluation and environmental product declarations. So we've actually been doing some work in the concrete sector around sort of the performance requirements for low carbon cements, and assuring that they continue to deliver on performance, but also sort of coupling that with environmental product declarations so we know what the environmental impact is, of those different cements. The other side of the equation, particularly the standard side, is really looking at whole life carbon or whole life greenhouse gas emissions associated with buildings. So, we've focused for a long time on sort of the operations of buildings and not necessarily a lot on the materials that go into those buildings, but there's sort of a crossover impact between the decisions we make in sort of both of those stages on the whole impact of the building. So we really talked about the work that we have ongoing with ASHRAE to develop ASHRAE ICC standard 240 to allow for that measurement and verification of a whole life carbon approach. And so certainly lots of interest and excitement around that standard, and really recognition of the need for standards and conformity assessment tools to really assure that we're making progress.
So, buildings breakthrough. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely.
Tell us more.
Well, the buildings breakthrough is part of the breakthrough agenda that was launched in Glasgow. There were certain sectors that were identified to sort of bring the various actors together to do the hard work that needs to be done to reach climate goals and unify the sector. And there were, Ryan, I think there were 5 or 6 breakthroughs announced in Glasgow, and they were in sectors that are a little bit more linear than the buildings and construction sector, things like transportation, energy. And there was a call last year in Sharm to add buildings and concrete or cement to the breakthrough agenda. And that came to fruition after sort of a year-long effort. The buildings breakthrough was officially launched in a big ceremony at COP28 in Dubai. And so there are overarching goals of the buildings breakthrough to achieve resilient and nearly net zero buildings by 2030. And all of the countries that sign on, there were 28 countries that signed on to the buildings breakthrough. They're making a commitment to do that. Underpinning the buildings breakthrough are initiatives that are designed to help support the countries to reach those goals. And there were 18 initiatives rolled out at the same time as the buildings breakthrough. And one of those initiatives is led by ICC, which is really exciting. So we've been working really closely with the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction over the past year. And they're the ones that are really taking a lot of the lead on coordinating the buildings breakthrough, along with the governments of France and Morocco that officially were the sponsors of the buildings breakthrough. And our initiative underpinning the buildings breakthrough is related to capacity building and really messaging the fact that a country shouldn't be stopping and declaring victory once they adopt a strong building code or an energy code. That's just the beginning of the hard work that needs to happen to ensure that buildings are sustainable and resilient. And that means that the building regulatory ecosystem needs to be looked at holistically, and we need to be focused on beyond the codes, on the underpinning standards, on having a building regulatory system that includes aspects like plan review and practitioner competency, assessing practitioner competency, monitoring practitioner competency, and having a full inspection regime in place for both buildings, as well as ensuring that the components used in buildings meet the standards and the codes that they need to meet, that there's accreditation in place, special inspections, and that there's also underpinning legislation that allows for the enforcement. So it's really looking at the whole building safety ecosystem holistically. And there's been a pretty good reception to this concept, sort of in all of the circles that that we've introduced it to, including development organizations that are helping emerging economies to implement building safety regulations, as well as developed countries that recognize that a higher level of training and competency and technical capacity is needed to effectively enforce energy codes and green building codes. But also, recognizing the need for resilience and all of this, strong building codes underpinning the need for resilience.
So the ICC gave another presentation about codes and capacity building for implementation, correct? Was that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Can you give us some major highlights from that presentation?
That presentation was really focused a lot on our initiative and on the capacity building initiative, but Ryan gave the presentation, so I'll let him talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, as Judy mentioned, we saw the capacity building initiative as a real need. We can certainly talk about sort of grand goals and sort of policies or activities that we're going to put in place, but sort of without that underlying sort of verification process that folks on the ground actually have the skills and capacity to implement. We talked a little bit earlier about sort of products and how they can help meet the needs, and so really focused on sort of having all of those pieces together. And then also sort of one element that we don't completely have sort of integrated into our capacity building initiative, but really recognizing the importance of sort of financial mechanisms to be able to do that, and sort of the recognition from the insurance community, the banking community, the investment community that their investments are going to have impacts, and they should be really looking at the sort of underlying standards and tools and capacity to sort of protect their investments and make sure that what they're investing in, is really driving, towards addressing climate resilience and mitigation needs. So, so really, really great opportunity there as well.
Now, I want to talk a bit about the Pakistan Engineering Council. How are they changing codes in Pakistan, and how is the ICC working with them to do that?
The Pakistan Engineering Council is the recipient of the 2023 ICC Global Award. And so they're integrated into this whole discussion of COP because we invited them to come to Dubai because it's slightly easier for them to get to Dubai than it is to the United States, perhaps, so that we could present them with this award. They received the award because the Pakistan Engineering Council is they're an independent organization, but they do have the remit from the Pakistani government to oversee building codes. So they do have some authority within the government structure, even though they're not a government organization. But they have really, over the past couple of years, leaned in heavily to building safety based on what they're witnessing firsthand in terms of intensifying and more frequent natural hazard events that are due to climate change. And, this horrible flooding and in recent years that I think those images are emblazoned in all of our minds. But a couple of years ago, they embarked on updating the Pakistan Building Code based on the 2018 International Building Code. So the Building Code of Pakistan was issued, I believe, in 2019, based on the 2018 IBC. And then they approached us about about issuing a green building code for Pakistan. And so we worked with them to, actually, we were able to work through the U.S. Department of Commerce International Trade Administration through a grant that we had been given for a different project, but we were able to divert some of the funding to the Pakistan Engineering Council to give them to sort of underwrite the royalties to license the International Green Construction Code to allow them to use that to produce the Green Building Code of Pakistan. And that was issued at the end of last year or early this year. And in addition to helping them with the code, again, to sort of underpin the capacity building piece, we've used some of that grant funding to make the Pakistan Green Building Code available online in a read-only and sort of enhanced digital format. And we've also created a commentary to help practitioners in Pakistan better understand how to use and apply that code. So we're giving them all of this sort of underlying tools to help with implementation of the code. And now we're working with them on energy provisions that should be launched within the next couple of months. And then next on track, also funded through this grant, will be a plumbing code in Pakistan. So it's really exciting. They sent a 4-person delegation to Dubai to receive the award. We had a wonderful panel presentation involving the Undersecretary of Commerce for International Trade, Marissa Lago. We presented the award, and then we had a really great discussion about codes and green building and capacity building with Pakistan sort of as a leading example.
Is this award grant something that ICC gives every year?
The award is something that is given every year from the Global Membership Council. The grant is a completely separate issue that, we have a grant from the Department of Commerce that we've been using to help fund code development activities on a sort of, it was designed to help in a different project, like I said, but we were able to divert some of the funds. But it's a special program called the Market Development Cooperator Program, and it's meant to help nonprofit organizations, U.S. nonprofit organizations, to extend their messaging and their tools internationally, with the eventual hope, as it is a Department of Commerce grant, to promote U.S. exports of goods and services. And what ICC does is really exporting services.
Very cool. Well, lastly, I want to ask you guys, you attend COP every year. So what do you see changing at these events? How is it evolving from like a construction building aspect?
Yeah, so I think, just as we started the conversation, having the sort of progression over time, an increased focus on, buildings, just sort of 3 years ago in Glasgow, there was sort of a contingent of buildings folks there, but we were mostly sort of talking amongst ourselves and sort of strategizing on, sort of what do we see as the need. And then last year in Sharm el Sheikh, having France and Morocco step forward to say, we should really have a buildings breakthrough, having the sort of broader participation of the buildings industry, having sort of climate adaptation and mitigation and the role of buildings sort of at the table, was really exciting. And then, having this year, the formalization, the launch of the buildings breakthrough, having 28 countries, stand up and say, buildings are an important issue. We're going to work towards, sort of addressing that need. And then, sort of looking into the future, part of the sort of outcome of the buildings breakthrough is a ministers meeting in March in Paris of, ministers from around the world that are involved in construction or housing or buildings in some way to really set a, specific agenda moving forward. And so hopefully at next year's COP, we'll see an even sort of greater presence within the buildings industry, greater recognition, and maybe get sort of buildings into sort of the formal outputs and agreements around COP. So really excited to see the progression.
And I think it's to add on to what Ryan said, which is all perfect. 40% of global greenhouse gas emissions are coming from the buildings and construction sector. And so, those numbers kind of overlap different sectors, and some of them are also energy, some of them are also transportation, but it is a big chunk. And, I think having that missing from prior discussions, prior outcomes of COP is doing a disservice to the countries trying to achieve their nationally determined contributions. They need to address the buildings and construction sector if they're going to hit those Paris climate targets. And hopefully that will become more part of the global stock take, more attention to buildings in the loss and damage discussion. It just needs to be more of a through line. But I do think we're seeing the needle move, and we're seeing that taken up more and more, as at least we've been there for 3 years, and we are seeing that, and we're seeing a role for ICC and for other organizations involved in green and sustainable buildings, building safety to get involved. And it really is a global discussion. It's not just the US trying to impose what we do here to other countries. It's countries around the world and businesses around the world and governments around the world all coming together, civil society, to try to address this problem. And and in our case, what can we do in the buildings and construction sector? What tools can we offer to help address this global, very consequential problem?
Well, thank you again, Ryan and Judy, for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
If anyone listening has any questions, please feel free to reach out, and we'd love to continue the conversation. Until next time, visit us on buildingenclosureonline.com for your technical and educational resources.